In this video, we strive to remain spoiler-free, discussing only story and plot elements from the books relevant to what has occurred already on the show. When necessary, a spoiler warning with a countdown will be given.
Well, welcome to WoT the Adaptation, the show where we watch things that came from one medium and are transferred over to another. I'm Bill, also known as Matt Stagger, and joining me is Max.
I'm Max.
And I'm the TheGeekyHippie. Welcome back. This week we continue with the adaptation of Frank Herbert's Children of Dune over on the Sci-Fi Channel back when it actually was spelled Sci-Fi. What episode are we discussing tonight, Max?
The second. I still have no idea what the technical names are.
I believe it's The Children, right?
This is The Children, yes. Do we have a director on this one?
Same as the first episode. It was directed by Greg Yattanes and written by John Harrison.
Okay.
And so I'm going to guess the third episode's the same. Possibly.
Yep. And that one's The Golden Path.
Okay.
I looked it up.
And yeah, in this episode, Lady Jessica returns to Dune while Aliyah gains political power with the aid of an old enemy, and Leto and Gamina plot their own salvation.
That works. What'd you guys think of this one?
I thought it was better than the last one in some areas.
Agreed.
The CG actually seemed better somehow.
Yeah, that's
like
weird.
the opening segment with the worms, for instance.
Yeah.
They didn't look bad until you got to the front end view looking into the worm's mouth. That was horrible again.
Yeah. And it was supposed to be beautiful.
The Thopter shot was really nice. When they did the side view of the Thopter coming out, that looked great. But that dead-on view down the worm's mouth was very...
It didn't hold up. The side view flying...
Early 90s.
The side view flying up held up for CG. Comparatively. Looking into the mouth did not hold up.
I can't argue there. I think my favorite CG shot is one that I'll talk about later, flying down the chimney. That was a great shot. When we'll get to it. So, Max, first question.
Of all the changes from the source materials, what are some you enjoyed and what some you disliked?
Anybody want to go first?
As far as dislike, I mean, there are aspects sprinkled throughout I dislike. The whole, well, that's at the end of the episode, but nonetheless, they leave out the whole, sort of hypnotic thing that goes on where he convinces his sister he's dead, but sets a trigger word so she'll remember what really happened. All that's left out.
Yeah.
Completely. She just hits her head on a rock, and it's very, it's kind of a shortcut, I guess, but it's one of the things in the books that builds tension is that deep down she knows the truth, but doesn't at the same time, and you don't get that quite the same on there. So I wasn't real happy with that.
My change, my favorite change, is probably the biggest change they did. They aged the twins up. This would not have worked with 9-year-old actors.
Even it would have been extremely difficult.
Yeah. Even 12-year-olds playing 9-year-olds would have been pushing it. I think the smartest choice they made was aging them up. Although, I got the impression they're supposed to be 15 or 16, maybe 17 here, because they're approaching their age of, adulthood, which can change depending on your culture. When I know at least McAvoy was 24 when he filmed this. And I know they do that all the time in film, but I hate it. Doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it something I have to be happy about. I hate when they cast way older than the actual character they're casting for. When we've seen plenty of teenage actors pull off the job. Like if anybody here has watched Umbrella Academy, the kid who plays 5 since season 1 has been the best performance on the show. And he was a teenager when he started playing the role. You can do it without having to cast 20-somethings or 30-somethings.
Pretty much any of the kids from Shameless. I mean, they killed their roles for years.
Yeah.
And I mean, they were perfect. I mean, is it possible they could have used younger actors? Yes. At the same time, I think it would have turned off a large portion of the audience knowing what they're going to go through to see little kids go through what they have to go through. I think
they
that
should
would
have
have turned
cast,
the audience off. So.
yeah. For this show, I think they should have cast two actors who were like 16, maybe 17. Cast that actual age, call them 15 if you want, approaching their 16th, but cast 16 or 17-year-olds. I wouldn't even complain about an 18-year-old. It's just you don't cast somebody in their 20s as a teen. Except when you do, like Denis Villeneuve casting 24-some-year-old Timothée Chalamet as Paul, who's supposed to be 15. But at least he looks young.
Yeah, but I love James McAvoy as Leto. I'm not going to lie. It's one of the highlights for me, man. So I can't picture somebody else.
I think he's old for the part. And so is Jessica Brooks.
Anybody over the age of 9 is old for the part. So,
which is why I think the best change they made was aging the kids up.
Yeah.
I found it disturbing reading them as 9 in the book. There were just certain things, certain elements that were discussed as having had happened that I just found disturbing.
Well, it's meant to be that 9-year-olds have these internal awareness of thousands of lives. It is what makes the book really disturbing. You're like, this is a 9-year-old saying this stuff. And when you remind yourself of that, it creeps you out.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of changes and it's like the first episode. There's so many to even keep track of.
Yeah,
that
right
I'm trying to think of ones that I disliked, and I can't think of any off the top of my head for what I disliked or even enjoyed. It's just there's so many throughout this whole episode.
I kind of have issue with the 3 worms right there at the beginning. I mean, that's totally not anything out of the book. At least if it is, I don't remember ever having read that in the book. And I just listened to it twice in the last month. So,
I mean, at most you have them talking about the lack of worms because of the water going on. And they're getting harder to find because they're deeper in the desert.
They do bring that up. There's that scene where they're sitting together on the ridge once they run away.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul's looking out, and his sister asks him what he's doing. He said, I'm looking for a worm. And she says, they don't come this close because of the water. And that's about the only mention there is.
The only person who should be seeing a worm, unless you're riding one in the book, from the book, would be Farad'n. That one, it makes sense him seeing it out there on Solusa Secundus. I mean, I don't remember if he actually ever does in the book, but it's there,
Or the prophet. I mean, he does go to the deep desert.
Yeah. The preacher.
It comes down to what I like or dislike actually comes down to the quality of acting on this episode, which isn't a change from the series.
Right.
No. Yeah.
So
acting quality is a little bit.
Well, Aaliyah
that's why I'm saying that for
over
later.
the top. Yeah, Aaliyah can be a little over the top. And like I said, McAvoy I enjoyed. Didn't really have too much of a problem with his acting. Yeah. He was my standout.
We'll get there. Well, what's next?
Ready for the second question, or?
Yeah.
All right. How will the show interpret the appearance and nature of the costumes, props, scenery, creatures, both practical and VFX, and what do you feel about the music?
Other than the worms, I think everything looks good. One thing I really like, and this goes back, you see, I noticed it in the first part. The Atreides hawk on their banner is super stylized. It's basically 2 triangles interlocked, and then it's got serifs on, flares and all that to it. But that's essentially all the Atreides hawk is. And I'll have it right up here. while I'm talking about it. And I really like that for the design, but that was just one thing that stood out. But the worms are still, and they're going to be next episode, ugly. Don't look like what I think he was describing in the books. They're scary looking. I'll give them that, but I don't see them as Dune sandworms.
The tigers were an issue for me, especially the
Did not
up
hold
close
up.
shots. You're like, wow.
Yeah,
I mean, Dragon
and it
Age
did
has better graphics.
but see, it won the Emmy that year for the CGs.
Yeah.
That's
I
the
mean,
amazing thing.
It's great for the time. It's just it did not hold up to now. So
Yeah. And
I'm
yet,
just,
Battlestar Galactica never did get an Emmy for its special effects. To my
I'm
knowledge.
thinking of Final Fantasy VII. There's a character called Red XIII or Red 13. It's a big tiger creature, basically the same damn thing. And the CG of that character also did not hold up from that era to today. And it's like the gap in time between when that game came out and Dune is substantial enough that it's like it was a vast improvement, but it still looks back now like, ooh, they're both bad.
Yeah.
Well, see, first I want to say that those tigers, they remind me of what's that creature, that tiger that He-Man rides?
I don't know.
Battle Cat?
Battle Cat. For some reason, they kind of remind me of them, but with like bigger whiskers on the sides. I don't know. They kind of. I could easily see them being turned green and giving them some stripes. And isn't Battle Cat green? It's some funky color, I think.
Yeah, he's green when he transforms.
Yeah. But the special effects on this show, it boggles my mind that these are the special effects in 2003, and then at the 2003 Emmy, so made in 2000 for 2002, I think, made during 2002, and a year and a half later, you have Battlestar Galactica miniseries, and those special effects still hold up for the most part. At least the space battle scenes hold up completely. The Silent Centurions are just a little bit off, and that's on a TV budget, probably a smaller budget than what this trilogy had. I don't know what the budget was, but it's just a year and a half, 2 years difference is a big difference in what Sci-Fi Channel was kicking out for special effects.
Well, yeah, I mean, the technology in those few years leapt forward.
And this is the same time the prequel movies and Lord of the Rings movies are coming out. Or actually being made around the same time, put it that way. So yeah, it just, who made the leaps forward, I don't know, but it's like I said earlier, I don't believe Battlestar Galactica ever got any Emmy awards for its special effects. Yet it was the best consistently, and it's still some of the best special effects that network's ever had, in my opinion. I'm a little biased. I've only seen that series 7 times through.
I was going to say, you're a little biased. Every time I talk to you, like, so have you watched it yet? No, not yet, Glenn. I'll get to it.
I know.
Costuming in this episode, I felt like held up a little bit better than some of them I've seen. It seemed almost more consistent in ways.
Some people change clothes, others don't.
Yeah, but even then, it just felt like it worked for the scenes they were in and not horrible.
Yeah. I don't think Duncan or Gurney Halleck has ever changed clothes in this in this miniseries.
Well,
Jessica definitely has.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think like every scene.
Well, yeah, it depends what she's doing and what kind of funky hat she wants to wear today.
Right.
Because there's always a funky hat somewhere.
Somewhere in the crowd.
But yeah, overall, I'd say the costuming was done pretty well. I mean, especially going over the people who are at the palace and everything and walking around the streets there. They're all wearing, appropriate garb for that era and time. And you can see they're getting away from the desert a little bit.
it was just bugging me here because I'm like looking at a scene with the Jessica. I'm like, why does she look so freaking familiar? She's the Borg Queen in First Contact.
Yes. Yes.
It's like, because without audio going and you're watching the show, it's like she looks like a bad guy. And like, why do I get that impression that this is the bad guy in the show?
I didn't feel much from her as Jessica. It's almost like she's there and she's going through the motions, but I'm not getting any sympathy that I should be feeling for her, because I remember in the books. Yeah, she is. I just, for some reason, I'm not getting it.
No,
and see, I didn't mind that acting for her at all. I was just, seeing the character. It's like I got that view of like, this is a bad guy for some reason. Like, why am I feeling that? It's like Borg Queen. That was a connection. Yeah. Music, I didn't really stand out much in this episode for me. There wasn't any big moment that was like, "Ooh, this is some good music to fit this theme."
Except for
thematic scene.
Last time, everybody really liked that music during the credits. That really imperial pageantry music.
And then that didn't really happen this time.
Well, it was there. It was there.
I mean, at the end of the episode, it didn't really.
No, it was there at the beginning of the episode, right after the worms.
Yeah, I'm talking about the end of this episode. We didn't really get that, like, thematic exit outro music. It just kind of like, oh yeah, tune in next week to see if they survive.
Well, yeah, it was the saga of Dune is far from over, and that's it. You don't really get that build up and that bang in there with the music.
Right. At least it was Irulan saying that. I like the consistency there of Irulan being sort of like a narrator over this story. That's one thing I did like that David Lynch did, was having Irulan narrate the opening like that. And so seeing Irulan doing similar here, I was like, sorry, Max.
I was waiting for you to finish.
I'm done. Sorry.
Okay. The effects with the Baron are actually kind of funny, interesting. He like floats in like a little ghost, and it's like those particle effects actually hold up watching.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad. And dear God, I love him as the Baron.
Yes.
He's always been my favorite Baron. If you can call that a favorite.
I can.
Maybe the guy who narrated it in the book, that audio book that I listened to, maybe. He's got, his voice goes deep. It's supposed to be real deep, and I'm like, this guy doesn't quite. Ian McNeice doesn't have a really deep voice, that's for sure. But his performance as the Baron is just, it's top notch.
I think that's the difference between the movie too. Skarsgård comes off way more menacing and not nearly as conniving. This Baron is very conniving. And he speaks in rhyming couplets, which is just hilariously annoying. And I love it.
I don't know why they made that character decision for him.
I don't know, man, but it just cracks me up every time.
Other costuming things I'm thinking here, like Aaliyah's character, her costumes are just kind of all over the place. There's times you'd swear you're watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Charmed, and they're doing like their Fashion of the Week episode.
I did get a Charm vibe. Absolutely.
Yeah. I avoided that one.
And I'm almost positive, like in this one scene near the end, like she's wearing like this silver tank top thing. In the next scene, she's like in this royal dress, and it's like, I'm pretty sure that's part of the royal dress. Before the rest, like they reused it.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And that would probably add something to like, oh, she just is getting ready for this big event and hasn't finished, but it didn't come off that way watching the scene. It was like, this is just what she's wearing, and then all of a sudden she's wearing this thing.
Right. Didn't take the time to show her at least walking over to the closet and grabbing something.
Right. She did have a wide variety of outfits, though, just not as many as some of the other characters. Although I don't think Ghanima changed outfits too many times.
Did we see her that many times?
Later, yes. This episode, not so much.
No, I think she had like 3 outfits. Like
Yeah,
3
sounds
outfits
about it.
entire episode.
We see Leto like 3 or 4 times tops, beginning and a couple times in the middle.
Yeah, we have a good amount of time with them though. I think.
Yeah.
It felt like a lot of
We'll
the
get-
episode was Aaliyah and Jessica's back and forth, and then the random little
Right.
side arcs.
Well, that's because the Aaliyah Jessica stuff kind of dragged, at least in my opinion. So it just felt like it was taking up more time. Because to be honest, those were just for me.
I would have liked it if we could have seen some of the machinations going in towards Jessica's plans for later. I
You
mean,
mean-
at least
Right.
hints of them, you know?
You mean the plots within plots within plots?
Yes. I mean,
Here,
plots within
here,
plots
here
within
we get plots outside of plots. Because
Yeah.
the plots aren't in the plot.
But I mean, yeah, I
So-
think the biggest plot point of this whole episode is pretty much, you know, Seleucus Secundus trying to gank the Atreides. So, I mean,
Basically, it's about all there is to this one, it feels like. I mean,
when
yeah,
you
we
really
are
look at
watching-
it, yeah.
Sorry.
No
Go
worries.
ahead.
I was done.
You're starting to say, when you really look at it. Yeah, outside of, yeah, we do get Alia, her development towards being Abomination. Spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen the next one or read that far in the book. Sorry. But we do get that, but there really isn't much else other than trying to kill the Atreides. So
Yeah, I think it's a nice setup, but I think they could have done a better job of showing, you know, these plans that are being made about the two Atreides. The
That
really
was,
important.
That was something that did kind of stand out. Was they did from the books get the scene with the tiger training on the kids in the beginning.
Yeah.
We got the scene where Jessica in the clothes, I believe, and Aaliyah in the clothes were being discussed. And I believe Aaliyah was like, one of them was pissed off about not searching the clothes.
No, I'll bring it up now, but it's my least favorite thing in the show, in this episode, is Aaliyah getting mad because Irulan wanted to have the clothes inspected.
Yeah. Irulan was one that's like, hey, this is a bad idea. Trust me, you can't trust them at all.
Yeah. Especially when you find out Javid was involved with having it set up. That just makes it even worse.
But it's like, it just stood out to me like they got those, key moments in the books in the show. So at least they didn't forget about those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it made
They were-
sense.
They were little enough that they, were important, and kind of going towards the whole Aaliyah being Abomination, etc.
That just leaves me really hoping, and since I haven't rewatched part 3, The Golden Path, since I watched the first time, I'm really hoping we get a whole bunch of scenes between Leto and Stilgar and Gurney off at some siege out in the middle of the desert somewhere. I'm assuming that might be Jakarudi where that happens at, if I remember correctly, where they're trying to interrogate. Maybe it wasn't Stilgar. Maybe it was some other Fremen. You remember what
Yeah,
I'm
it
talking
was.
about? It was another
Ye-
Fremen?
Yeah, it was. He was
Okay.
specifically picked to kill Leto.
If he gave the wrong answers.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay. What's next?
Question 4. What is a scene or sequence you most remember, enjoyed, and or hated?
I just gave that 9. The whole thing about the fight over the cloaks being inspected. I think it was just stupid. The whole scene.
It made sense to lay the groundwork, of these tigers are trained to specifically attack these outfits, whether it's scent based or whatever. And there's a
Right.
reason. So I at least get where they're, they did a good job of sort of putting that out there.
I like you were having them searched. It's just having, Aaliyah get all upset over, oh my God, she did something to make sure the kids are safe. I'm just like, shut up, Aaliyah.
Honestly, one of the scenes I really enjoyed was Jessica and Irulan having a conversation, and then they're actually having a completely different conversation using the Bene Gesserit hand signals, I guess.
That's my
I really enjoyed that.
That's my favorite scene of the episode. I was going to bring that up. It just, any scene where they're doing that, because especially I'm assuming they were given choreographed. They weren't just doing things on their own. They were told, somebody told them do this, this, and this. But doing all that while delivering lines can't be the easiest thing. Now imagine actually having a conversation both ways. That just trying to have both conversations. I don't know. I'm sure there are people who can do it, but that's a lot of concentration that I don't think my brain can do most of the time.
Keep in mind, they're both Bene Gesserit trained, so they literally can section off their brain and go, okay, this half you're going to do the talking, this half you're going to do the signing. So they have complete control over that sort of thing.
Right.
So
the other thing that was shot, there was a shot two shots that I really liked. It was one when he was landing and one when he was taking off. When Duncan flew the ornithopter down basically a chimney, down a straight tunnel, cave tunnel straight down from the surface, and then over into the park. That was some pretty sweet piloting, and it was a great shot to show it with. Just wish we could get it with some CG of like today, so it looked photorealistic.
Dune 2 coming out soon.
Yeah, might get something
for me,
like that.
For me, scenes like it's hard to pick out a scene that I actually enjoyed the most or hated or anything like that. You mentioned the double talk with the sign language, which stands out. Pretty much any scene with the James McAvoy stands out.
Yeah.
Like, to me, he steals the show for acting in this whole episode, even though he's barely in it. Hated scenes come down to like CGI, that kind of stuff. Pretty much didn't really like any scene with trying to think of her name. Aaliyah, who is Daniela Mavia. Her acting was just so subpar compared to everybody else's in this. Like, for such a big role, I was like, could they have got a better actor?
She felt over the top when she was doing any of the struggles with the possession type stuff. It came off almost slapstickish.
I think she probably was directed to go a little bit over the top.
Yeah, I think so.
It's hard to pinpoint what was all going on, but back to the charm, it almost felt like a villain of the week and gotta be over the top.
She didn't feel over the top in the previous episode.
Even the previous one, she wasn't that great. I don't know, either it's the directing angle they were telling her to act or how she acts as an actor, I don't know. But she didn't really stand out for me. Okay. And the opposite side of that is every time the Baron made an appearance, his was always kind of, brought those scenes up. So it's like you got this part where I didn't care for her as an actress. When you got the Baron coming in, and it kind of equalizes it somehow.
Yeah, he does bring a lot to every scene with her. Particularly keeping in mind that this is all happening in her head. And so, it actually, you're right. It does kind of equal it out. I don't think she necessarily did a bad job. I just, like I said, it felt a little over the top for me.
And one thought is like in the books they mentioned that like she's doing these finger movements, which are Baron Harkonnen movements, his sign language, and she doesn't even realize she's doing these things. And it's almost implied that the Baron's been doing hand signals behind the backs of everybody this whole time.
See, I got in the book, I always got the impression that was a nervous tick that the Baron had. It's like some people, they'll sit there and they'll just tap their finger. Others will tap, like that. as if they were rolling a coin on their knuckles. I just figured that was the Baron's particular nervous tick that he
For
didn't
me,
notice he was doing.
I thought it would have been really easy for them, when she's making some important decision, we don't have to hear the Baron, but to see her do that motion, this one, because that was his big thing in the first one.
Yeah.
He would put 2 fingers on his temple and rub when he was making a important decision. Just little clues like that, I think would have been, we didn't need to hear the Baron or anything, but just dropping those in, especially when she's making an important decision, I think would have went a lot further towards, okay, she's losing control.
I couldn't think of what that was from. I just got done watching this show, this British show, where the detective, every time he's stressed out or anxious, he puts like a dab of like lotion on either, and then he sits there and massages, but like that with both hands. And it was reminding me of something, and you just pointed out exactly what it was reminding me of. It was reminding me of the Baron doing it with one hand.
Yeah, sounds like Perot with his little gray cells.
If you have the chance to check out Whitechapel from BBC, I think. Oh, series 1 and 2 are great.
Got David Tennant in the first one, right?
No, that's Broadchurch.
Oh, that's Broadchurch. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't watched that yet. I hear it's good. Whitechapel, they takes place in Whitechapel, London, but the first season, it's minor spoiler. You get a copycat killer copycatting the
Jack
Ripper.
the Ripper. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to that topic though, is like they were always harping about plots within plots on the first episode. Yep. And here you have a possible thing you could implement of like these hand signals from the Baron, a plot within a plot within a plot.
Okay.
Being dead from the grave, potentially plotting against them all without the one even knowing he's like controlling her hand doing this thing.
Yeah, I think it is a missed opportunity. They didn't drop something in there.
And like even in the book, it kind of felt like there was something like that going on with the finger movement beyond just the tick. Like there was, because
I never picked up on it.
Because there was like, wasn't there like Sardaukar in the crowd?
Yes.
Okay. Probably.
And those they work with the Baron, did they not?
They were loaned
briefly,
to the Baron.
yes.
So you have something like that, and you find out from Jessica's point of view that she's noticing the Baron's tick for hand signals, and you find out, oh, there's Sardaukar here. It's like, maybe Aaliyah didn't know about the assassination attempt because the Baron was plotting this behind her back.
Oh, see, I got the impression that Aaliyah was. Well, depends on which assassination attempt you're talking about. The one
in the throne room with the throne room.
Oh, that that was Aaliyah behind that entirely. So was the shot. Aaliyah was, I think, behind, in some way behind the one when her mother showed up too outside.
But like I said, that's one way they could have done that kind of thing, of have Baron come back, so to speak.
And have
he's the mastermind behind this. Or she doesn't know, she doesn't know, not that he's taking control of her head, he's taking control of her hand.
Yeah, and with the hand, he's able to do damage. So,
and to me, that'd be that ultimate mind f***ery of, oh shit, you go back and you see him doing these hand movements with her hand, and you're like, wow, they got us.
I wouldn't be surprised if there were still Harkonnen troops and agents and operatives,
for sure.
all over the place. In hiding, hiding what they were. So I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't think so.
There was some.
I don't see any reason they would have loyalty. I mean, there were no Harkonnens left,
maybe,
and they didn't exactly inspire loyalty in their people. So
I don't know if they would necessarily be loyal, but I think there would still be some out there. Whether or not they would be willing to work for, the ghost of a Harkonnen. If you want to put it that way, but still, it's just, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some out there. Is just what I'm saying.
No, I'm sure there are people who, were formerly with the Harkonnens. I can't see them being all that bothered that they're no longer controlled by the Harkonnens. So they'd be like, ah, cool. Okay, I'm out.
What's up next, Max?
Question 5. who would you call the best and/or worst actor, the best and/or worst casting, and you can choose the three, Glenn.
I'm letting you guys go.
Well, Art McAvoy. I mean, he killed it.
For both of you?
Yeah.
How about worst?
I'll
tell you
Edward
my worst.
Adderton or Daniela?
In this episode,
the worst casting
Daniela,
case was Alice Krieg as Jessica's. The worst casting. I'm not going to say she was bad acting. It's just the worst casting. The worst acting, though, it's
Daniela.
Probably Daniela Mavia. Maybe the guy who played the creepy priest, not Corbo, what's his name? Javid, who I'm convinced is the grown-up version of the kid we saw in the previous episode, just before the stone burner was set off. Because when Corbo's out in the streets and he's talking to the kid's name was Javid. Looks like he'd be the right age. Ignoring
I mentioned Edward Adderton, who played Duncan Idaho, and he just didn't impress me in this episode. Whether as acting or casting, he just does not. Yeah. After the new Bill, Dune movie, he just sucks as Duncan. I'm sorry.
You are absolutely right, Bill. They made zero attempt on changing his eyes because they didn't even give him contacts.
That's what I'm saying.
I went looking, and those are his natural eye colors. So
I'm like, he didn't even try.
If his eye color had been brown and they gave him contacts to make them steely gray, just the irises alone, I would have been satisfied as I am with the way they did the eyes of Yabad. Because I don't really care for the way they did the eyes of Yabad here either. I still think it's better than the glowing from 3 years before.
Kind of like the glowing eyes.
In the Discord, I put a picture here. I can't place the actor, but for casting wise, this guy could have played Paul in the new series, like if this was made 20 years ago.
I can't make out that picture. Let me turn up the brightness here. Oh, Javid. That's Javid.
Okay. I couldn't figure out who he was, but
yeah.
Like he could play Paul in the new one if this was made, 20 years ago.
For me, acting wise, obviously, I don't have them in any particular order, but Ian McNeice as Vladimir Harkonnen. I really like what he does. I'm entranced for some reason with Julie Cox's work as Irulan. I've always been a softie towards the character of Irulan, so maybe that has something to do with it. I always thought she kind of got the shit end of the stick. And so being one of my favorite characters in the Dune franchise, I don't know, I think that's probably why I'm biased enough to like Julie Cox. And then McAvoy as Leto. Can't ignore him. I don't blame you guys for right off the bat saying McAvoy. Even young McAvoy was good, and that's just stuff he's done since is just too bad it was with this show that we had to see him at this age. But I had never heard of him.
I remember loving Children of Dune when I first saw it. Back when it first came out, I loved it.
But I remember loving Frank Herbert's Dune when it first came out. A few years before that too, and that was painful to watch last year.
Yeah. The only one that's painful for me is the original cut of the 1984 David Lynch version. That is painful for me to watch.
Yes.
That's the only one that really bothers me.
Yeah. Although I like it a lot more, I do like the Alan Smithy version of 1984 Dune. But it's still painful. It's just not as painful.
Yeah, that's kind of like picking out which of your turds is prettier. So.
Yeah, the one that floats or the one that sinks.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, is it better? Yes. Is it good? No. No.
But it's still better, which is amazing.
It's better.
Lynch actually wanted his name taken off of it. No. Do you think Denis Villeneuve would do a good job with Children of Dune? And who do you think he would pull in for that?
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a hard question. I don't know the age he would go for the kids. That's going to be hard.
Right.
So I don't know if he'd actually go for younger kids. I mean, I don't know any actors of that age offhand, but
Well, you know, given that it's Hollywood, Tom Holland's gonna be involved.
Yeah, I don't have anybody in particular, but I do have to wonder. Did somebody bring this up previously? That they don't think Max, was it you that said you don't think he would keep Zendaya for Dune Messiah?
For aging up, I'm not sure if they keep either of those actors.
Okay. Yeah.
If they want to actually age up.
right.
She's
Because
pretty
we're talking
close
like
to the age.
15, 20 years later.
15, 16 years later. 15, I think.
So it's like...
No, 10 years.
Okay.
Dune Messiah would be 10 years because Aaliyah is only 15 or 16, and she was 6 when at the end of Dune. So it would have to be about 10 years older, which would put Paul at about 25, the actor's 24, 25.
Yep.
Zendaya is like 21 or 22, I think. And Chani, however you want to pronounce it, she's about the same age as Paul.
I mean, if she keeps doing Euphoria on HBO, she might easily look the part. But
that show stress
Depending
you
on
out.
stress levels and drug levels.
Right.
Yeah. But like the main guy that plays Paul, like you said yourself, he looks so young. So unless he does some kind of like Marvel diet to bulk up a bit, I don't know if they're going to keep him as Paul at 25 versus 15.
It's possible. It's possible.
Because I don't know if he could pull off Messiah Paul at the
Did you just say Paul
now.
off? Did you just say I don't know if he can pull off?
Pull off Paul.
He said pull, but
that sounded
Messiah.
like he said Paul.
Not Paul off Paul.
Pull off Messiah Paul.
If Villeneuve is going to make another one, I think he would strictly go into the point where he dies. That's it. I think he'd stop there. I'm not sure he would go into the Children of Dune at all.
Yeah, because
he could easily get a movie out of that.
Yeah, he said he was going to do 3. He wanted to do 3 Dune movies, and that means Dune Messiah would be the end. The one I want to see the most, and you have to go through Children of Dune to get there. I want to see God Emperor of Dune, and you both, if you've read it, you know exactly why. I want to see that done. I mean, I could throw the cover of God Emperor Dune up and ruin it for people.
I don't know how you pull that off. Honestly,
I think it can be done
without looking bad.
Oh, I think it can be done.
Well, you put Patton Oswalt's head on a giant worm, and have him do his.
If they had Patton Oswalt be MODOK in that movie, I wouldn't be upset.
You have him do his MODOK voice as the giant God Emperor of Dune.
But
may not be great, but it'd damn sure be entertaining.
Yeah. I think it can be done well. I really do. I mean, with the CG and puppet effects that we've got, whereas, except in this case, the head of the puppet would be an actual person, with their head sticking through whatever you've got them in, draped with green screen. That's all you need to do, cut a hole in the green screen, have the actor put his head through it.
Like I said, I don't know how good it would be. It would be entertaining, but I don't know how good.
That, and I want to see Jason Momoa with steel eyeball eyes. Oh, we'll see that in the next one. So yeah, what's up next, Max?
Question 6 with themes present in this episode. Which ones caught your attention, and what do you think about those themes that are relevant to the books or events happening in real life?
Yeah, I got to say generational trauma, especially inflicted on children or fetuses who have no say. We see a lot of that. You know, what
Yeah.
Aaliyah's going through isn't necessarily her fault. She had no say as a fetus. Neither did Leto, her sister.
Yeah,
I mean, both of them are awoken to a consciousness before they should, all three of them. And, you know, that's something they have to deal with, and they didn't choose it.
This story is in part Messiah, Dune Messiah and Children of Dune is in part the tragedy of Aaliyah. You know, we don't see the tragic side of her story in Dune. You know, we barely see her in Dune. I mean, there are some tragic conversations, you know, some really disturbing conversations that she has to have in the first book, but it's mostly these two where we see the tragedy of her, because she wasn't an abomination at the end of Dune. She's becoming an abomination. You're an abomination when you become possessed. That's what makes you an abomination. And she wasn't possessed until Children of Dune. I think maybe even, I don't know, I don't think she was possessed at all in Dune Messiah. I think she was still in control, if I remember correctly, that book. It's been a while. And I've read a lot since. But Children of Dune's really where we see her become possessed. And of course, the worst possible person to possess her, too.
You know, as far as themes go, aside from generational trauma, we basically have corruption as a theme. And that's basically the Baron, you know, he's the embodiment of corruption.
He's the least corrupt thing we see in this show, though. You know, in this book. The most corrupt thing we see is the Kizar, the priesthood. You know, and it's been corrupt since Korba. You know, getting rid of Korba didn't change that. I mean, now we've got Javid. You know, yeah. And see, for me, that's the big theme right there, is how screwed you are when religion becomes the government.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the whole point was like the Baron was the embodiment of corruption in the first movie, and we have corruption throughout Children of Dune. In every aspect, we have it with Aaliyah going on with the government. We have, like you said, the priesthood. It's everywhere. Even Dune is being quote unquote corrupted with water.
Yeah, it's turning green. Yeah. For me, the other one, other than just, you know, you're screwed when religion is government, is, you know, there's serious grabs for power going on. Everybody's just, it's a constant power play. You know, the show doesn't have it nearly as much as the book, but, you know, the book has a lot more. But yeah, those are the two that I really latched on to. And I had a lot of time to think about. But yeah, corruption's definitely something there that I didn't think of until you said it. A lot of corruption everywhere. Anything else, anybody? Any other?
I think the fundamental changing of a planet's ecosystem and how that can come back to bite you. In the books more so than the show.
Right.
But if thinking about that, there was a mention in the books that the worms aren't even native on this planet.
No. Right.
They're an invasive species. Possibly put there by the what do you call them? Not the travelers, the
Zensuni?
Yeah, whatever they are. That they may have come across these somewhere, who knows where, and just found this planet and threw them on there, and so what happened?
I don't think the Zensuni Wanderers brought it. It might be, but I think it was somebody else, because I think they were there on Dune, on Arrakis, when the Zensuni Wanderers came to Arrakis first.
I was thinking of the pilot guys. I can't think of how they're called.
Navigators.
The
guild.
They might have been involved with bringing them there. We don't know. Because we're talking geologic time frame here.
Yeah. Yeah, they mentioned it starts as a bacteria that slowly transforms into sand trout and goes on from there.
Plankton,
so,
sand plankton into sand trout. No, it depending on what you consider canon in the books, which I know there's some debate there. It could have been any different times, but it was definitely after humans first came to Arrakis. Because you got to remember that this is at least 10,000 years in the future. And if you take Brian Herbert, if you take Brian Herbert's stuff, it's at least 20,000 years in the future. So that's a lot of time for a planet to be for the desertification of a planet by an invasive species that soaks up water. What I don't understand is how much water was there before the worms showed up, and how much water are they dumping into the planet now, where the wet's actually taking over and forcing the sand trout back, or the sandworms back, and they can't keep up. If they're able to outpace the desertification that pressure that's constantly being applied, how come they couldn't outpace it the first time around?
There's already another planet.
People brought them there, though, so it was a wet planet before.
Yep.
Yeah, I just don't think to the extent that it is now. Right. There may have been some moisture, just not a lot. Now there's plentiful.
There's a lot
to
of
the
water
point where they see
in.
a puddle in the city, and Paul is pissed off because there's a puddle.
Yeah, there's probably enough water in that solar system alone to flood that planet. You know, that's something I always wondered about in the Dune universe. Do the navigators control travel between planets within a solar system? Or could great houses and others have their own ships that fly around planet to planet in their solar system and only use the navigators to go to another solar system?
I would think they do within their own solar system. They probably have their own ships and everything. It's interstellar travel that the guild is all about.
So they don't they wouldn't even need the guild to help bring in water. Just go out and start hauling in comets and watery asteroids and mining enough. Like, you could probably find a bunch of water on the moon, the moons.
That's all going to go down to like what actual technology they really have at this point, because it's all over the place. I'm sure they could do all that.
Yeah, it depends on where you're at. It's like Star Wars. It looks like a beat up old hand-me-down secondhand junkyard galaxy until you get to episode 1 and 2 and you're at Coruscant, the capital city, capital planet. And then it's high tech. It's like those two don't look like the same world. But that's why I don't find it so weird. Somebody's found it weird, how it looked medieval, that the market looked medieval. And I'm like, yeah, because they reject a lot of technology.
You're also missing motivation. Who in their right mind is going to bring water to the only planet that provides the one substance that is needed for interstellar travel? I mean,
the zealots?
Nobody.
The zealots that work for her? That's who's bringing it in.
Well, and that's one of the themes, is them changing the planet and how it's not necessarily a good thing.
See, they need to find an equilibrium. That's what they need to do. I'm sure you could work, you could figure out a way to balance that pressure, that desertification pressure, or re-desertification pressure against what you're wanting, and keep a balance. So part of me wants to agree with Aaliyah in, her terraforming project, but I fully understand, you can't let it take too much. You got to leave plenty of room for the worms.
Well, as we know, the navigators are working precisely on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think they dropped the ball on that in the series, but I'm not positive. Like, we got the capture, and that's about it.
They don't really explain it.
Like they just show the capture of the worm, and then that was it.
Yeah. They
Well, then
they
it-
do make a mention, I think, on Salusa Secundus, they do make a mention of attempting to have the worm so they can break the spice monopoly the Atreides have.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Well, that's why.
Yeah,
That's why
That's what
we
I mean,
see
they-
the worm in this episode on Seleucus Secundus when Farad'n's watching it, and he talk about the big cats in cages in ancient zoos that they would pace back and forth, and that's what this sandworm was doing, was back and forth. So,
but like I said, I was like they didn't really expand on it for this limited series of
no.
what's actually going to happen with that,
Right.
if anything at all.
Yep. And they're not the only ones trying to find a new way to break the spice monopoly. Because
Yeah. No.
that one takes another 4,000 years plus to happen. I don't even remember the exact chronology after. Oh yeah, no, a lot more than that.
I think God Emperor takes place 3,000 years after
Three,
Children of
4,000. I think it's 4,000. Something. It's between 3,000 and 4,000, but it's well after God Emperor Dune, when they're honored matres, or like the one book I listened to, the narrator called them martyrs. Honored martyrs or maters. That's what it was, maters. And I'm like, just because an E on the end doesn't make the vowel long, especially when it's followed or preceded by a T and an R, that's pronounced. Besides, it's Spanish. Close to Spanish. Anything else anybody want to bring up? Max?
No,
All right. Thank you guys for joining tonight. Thank you guys at home for watching. This has been an interesting conversation. We've got another one coming up, not next week, but the week after. We're not going to be recording for Father's Day, so we'll see you in 2 weeks with Part 3, Children of Dune, The Golden Path. Thanks for watching. Have a nice night, and don't forget to be awesome.